Hey everybody, I'm Steve Owens, tournament director with Georgia Bass Nation Kayak Series. This is just an episode just to catch up on what we've got going on next week uh, on Lake Russell. We This is the third year we've partnered with the South Carolina Bass Nation, so going to bring on some people to talk about that. We're going to bring in Bennett Nall for that. He just come off a pretty epic tournament there this past weekend with South Carolina Yak, and then we got Chris Walters, our Tennessee Bass Nation champion from a few years ago, who placed third and got to walk across the stage on Lake Russell in the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship a couple years ago as well. So, going to bring these guys in and just talk a little bit about the event we've got coming up and what's been going on with them and what we got going on for the rest of the season in Georgia Bass Nation in particular. So, we're bringing Chris Walters here and there's Bennett Nall. So, how y'all doing this evening?
Good, good.
We're doing good here in Jasper, Tennessee.
Yeah, we Bennett, I know you saw. We'll get into the limits here in just a minute, but Chris had a heck of an event in our Tennessee Bass Nation Kayak Series and our grassroots club TVKA that fishes there too. I know you saw. Bennett had 108 and a quarter inches on Gunnersville. Ewing had 108 and a quarter on Gunnersville, and
I saw that.
yeah, and then you bust 104 and a quarter on Russell. But yeah, Chris, he had our Sniper Marine Big Bass with 23 and a quarter. So how did I was talking to a couple of guys on the phone today that are fishing the KBF 10 down there, Chris, and obviously didn't give them any juice or anything, but each of them I talked to, I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know if you're not catching them right now, you don't deserve to be in the 10." I said, because these guys absolutely waxed them. Y'all caught fish doing any and everything. So, Chris had a great tournament. What was kind of the highlight for you, Chris?
Oh, definitely that big bass. That was my PB in a kayak tournament lengthwise, and also my best 5 fish limit and my best 3 fish limit. So, uh, yeah, Gunnersville was on fire. Everybody was catching them. Boat tournament the same day out of Goose Pond, and there was like 40 20-pound bags brought in that day, and yeah, it was the fish were chewing for sure.
Yeah, and I share it all the time. Like, Seminole's my favorite place to fish. But Gunnersville, Chris and I've been friends for a long time and we grew up in the same area. I live on Chickamauga, he lives on Nickajack, and I drive to Gunnersville to fish every day of the week if I could, but we got lucky, I know you guys, a couple of you got to fish the Bassmaster Championship on Nickajack and Chickamauga. I keep wanting to say uh Nicamaga and whatever, but that combo there. But dude, Nickajack is just blown up and the fishing is stupid crazy and good. So I mean, and Watts Bar, like if we would ever put enough tournaments on Watts Bar at the right times of year, I mean, we wouldn't talk about it in the same category as those other three, but I mean, we got Watts Bar and then Chick and then Nickajack and then Gunnersville, Wilson Wheeler, Pickwick and Kentucky Lake all in a string down here. So, when took over Georgia Bass Nation, I reach out to everybody for scheduling and stuff. It's because, I don't know that map and geography up there, but finding out the stuff that lives in South Carolina and Georgia is pretty crazy too. So, you know, uh, let Bennett let you introduce yourself, where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Bennett from South Carolina. Hartwell's about 20 minutes from me, kind of my home lake, but I like Kiwi a whole lot more. That's kind of where I would prefer to fish. But I don't fish Russell much other than whenever we have tournaments here in the summer. And I feel like every time we come to Russell, it's always kind of middle of the summer, June, July, kind of like dead heat of it. This first time we really had tournaments here, like early summer like this. And never seen a bag over 100 inches on Russell until this past weekend. And it's fishing way better than it has in the past when we've been in the late summer. Um, there's a lot of largemouth out right now, too. A lot of largemouth. And usually what we see is just a bunch of spotted bass, a bunch of big spots, too. We usually see a bunch of 20-plus inch spots. but we saw a lot of big largemouth play last weekend.
Yeah, we had, I think I'd mentioned, so when I was building a schedule, it's easy because everybody's like, hey, we're going to fish February, March, April, May. Everybody loves those months. But Gayton just said in the comments, he said spots rule. But, we're always looking for, you know, for me, the most important thing to figure out in the schedule is where can we fish when it sucks and nobody else wants to fish. And Russell was always one of those that everybody says, in the summertime you can at least go catch some fish.
Yeah.
We can go to Clark's Hill, Hartwell, Lanier, and all that, but your guys are going to get swamped by boats because there's a lot of wreck traffic, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's America. You're supposed to be able to go out and do what you want to when you pay money for something. But us fishermen, we don't want anybody on the water when we're out there. We forget, about everybody else's freedoms. But the thing with Russell is in the dead heat of the summer, you can get out of the way.
Oh yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like we fish Guntersville, Chickamauga, and all that, and you can still get out of traffic and catch some good fish, But so that's why we always went to Russell when it was late. So this year, when we got to shuffle some things around and go a little earlier, which is what everybody asked for, I thought that was pretty cool. So Caleb just commented, if we could stay away from Clark's Hill, I'm happy. You ever got to fish Clark's Hill, Chris?
I have not. No.
Yeah, me either. I got to swim in it with my big head nephew. We had a Georgia bass up there a couple years ago. I brought him with me, and we just, we had Sassy Dan judging, so we just got out and swam a little bit. I brought fishing stuff, and he was probably about 11 or 12 at the time, about 4 years ago. We fished about 20 minutes. Next thing I know is Uncle Steve, can I jump in? So we just swam the rest of the day. But yeah.
Hartsville or Hartwell and Russell. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to get you up there. I know, your schedule was crazy. I grew up working that schedule too, but we'd love to get you on some of these Georgia tournaments if we can just make buddy trips and stuff. But
I definitely want to go back to Russell. Only fished it that one weekend for the Bass Masters Championship, and that was I believe the first week in March.
Yep, March 2nd, 3rd, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that was those results. I've got them here. Well, I had them pulled up earlier. So yeah, you were third. So first, Siddiqui won. What was it? He had like 94 each day. He had like identical, back-to-back limits. I'm gonna pull this up real quick while we're going here, and then Siddiqui won in Guntersville. I clicked on that one. There's Hartwell with Lowell Brandon. Bear with me, folks. I had it pulled up a little earlier, and then I got to getting some images and stuff. We'll get into the Georgia and South Carolina AOY standings here in a minute. So, yeah. So the top 5 was Russ Snyder's with 172.5. Francis Tran from Mississippi was in 4th with 173 3/4. And then Chris Walters had 175.5. Johnny Milchling from Maryland, 187 3/4. And then, Siddiqui beat him by 1/4 of an inch with 188. He had 94 94. So, again, like you said, Chris, it was March, but it is amazing how, a month or two different can make a difference in these fisheries. And so what were you doing when you were there on that one? Because you had 91.5 on day one. And that was good. I think on day one, if my memory serves me, you were probably about 4th or 5th place. Do you remember? Because we were just texting back and forth, me and Lambert, because we're like, oh hell, Waters is doing it,
Yeah, that was a like a pre-spawn staging bite, and when I got down there, I wasn't sure if the largemouth if you could catch 5 largemouth each day, that would be good, or if it was going to be like a mix of spots and largemouth. But I figured out pretty quick that I could catch the largemouth in the back of the creeks and sloughs and stuff, and I ended up narrowing it down to just a jig and a couple crankbaits, and I just covered water that I'd found in practice with the jig and crankbait, and that was kind of the deal where I was at, which I was in the Savannah River arm arm of the lake, probably mid lake, I would say.
Yeah, so you've been at, you mentioned, you only fish it just basically like during tournament stuff. Have you been able to practice, or are you just going in and fishing what you know?
I was able to practice a little bit. So this past weekend, I practiced the Sunday before for about 4 hours or so, just running some history, seeing if they were doing what they usually do in the middle of the summer. And it was the same deal as the middle of the summer, but the bites were a lot bigger. Um, I mean, I had 92.5 inches in about 4 to 6 hours practicing the Sunday before. And, went out last weekend and they were just a whole lot bigger during the tournament than they were in the 4 to 6 hours of practice. And they were all largemouth instead of spots. So there's still a lot of fish up shallow too. Points, herring spawn stuff. And then I know of a lot of big fish that were caught on topwater and stuff just in the creeks as well. Just running the bank. So it's not just a live scope deal. There's plenty of people who caught really big fish. Just running the banks as well.
What about that, Chris? Look at that. 104.25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so my weight was just over 26 pounds, almost 26.5 pounds for my best 5.
So you brought a scale with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just an unreal day. And really lucky as well. I mean, I was calling out 18 and 19-inch spotted bass with 20-inch largemouth, which doesn't happen very often on Russell. But it definitely showed out. I think Russell's definitely on an upswing as well.
Are you fishing this tournament on the night?
I'm going to have to now. But what was funny as well, there were 2 boat tournaments went out on Russell last weekend. And it took 13.5 pounds to win one of them, and it took 17.5 to win the other one. So there were a lot of fish over 4 pounds weight in those boat tournaments as well.
Yeah, and what I like is, and I'll bring, we're going to talk Tennessee stuff too, because I run Tennessee also with Sassy Dan, and I live here, and Chris is Tennessee guy too, and fishes national stuff. But we started doing recruiting events right out of the gate because JC, I can't remember who started up there with the South Carolina stuff or for South Carolina Bass Nation the first year. But it went okay. But then the next year, JC Sanchez, he had the time and effort to be able to put into it, and really, it got South Carolina Bass Nation up and going. And then so we partnered for 2 or 3 years. I know 2 of at least. And then he's one that King and all them mentioned Ain't It Good Cafe.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good time. I was just telling my wife, next week we're off all week for our anniversary, so we're going to do a little bit of bumming around, some of Tennessee, and we're gonna come up on Friday and hang out and probably do a meet and greet if we can. It Ain't It Good. And then Saturday, that's obviously home base, but really appreciate JC getting, what he got going. And then I know, a lot of things come into play. He stepped away, and Caleb, has taken over now, which Caleb had to work tonight. So, it's great. It's great that we can all pitch in, and when the shovel gets heavy, somebody else grab it and keep moving forward. But, hell, man, there's just a lot of good fisheries in South Carolina. And, Tom was going to be on here with us, but couldn't make it, but, he's one of my sounding board guys because they grew up fishing Georgia, South Carolina. You mentioned Kiowee. So a couple of years ago when y'all fished Hartwell in the championship, I fished Kiowee while y'all were fishing Hartwell. And I think I reached out to you a little bit beforehand, but GL Compton that runs a nation and stuff, he's a Clemson alum and all that. And so he loves Kiowee. So he told me where to go. And Chris, I stood up and I was just throwing that cheap Sabile swimmer, that Berkeley ball. And dude, I didn't change the treble hooks, and I lost 4-pounder after 4-pounder, and I was on the phone with GL, and I stood up, and I had my scope on, but I could barely spell scope, so I was throwing a jerk bait, and I kept watching these fish, and I said, they're probably stripe, and he said, no, they're not, And of course, I mean, he's just like, no, they're not. You need to be doing this. You know how we get with each other. It's like, what are you, stupid? And so I stood up and just started casting that Sebile. For me, that's a glide bait and a swim bait. I don't really know the difference between either one. And dude, I started watching just on my side image and my traditional fish were coming up from 25 foot following that glide bait. Or Sebile, whatever that bait is. And, oh my gosh, it blew my mind. And I was going crazy watching these fish. And I think I want to say I might have called Chris just talk, and I hooked into one that was probably 5 or 6 pounds, and it come up out of the water right before dusky dark on Saturday, and it blew my mind. I just so I want to figure out how to do something big on Kiwi for everybody, but you know, we'll see. But I know y'all fish it, but I just it's blown my mind learning that how good these fisheries are in these other states, because we get spoiled with some of what we've got, but so we appreciate that there. And then but coming up this weekend, and we'll dive back into, just some regular fishing stuff. Last year at this event in particular, as Bennett mentioned, it was a little later in the year. It was towards the end of June. We had 50 people fishing, and I think that's our biggest one so far. But we had, little side story. Gayton and Meadows, they're best bud pals, but Gayton ended up beating him with 92 3/4. But the year before, Gayton didn't have cell signal, and he had the wrong identifier for the whole tournament. Chris lost tournament big bass, and it cost him AOI probably. But anyway, they don't let each other live that down. But Bennett, I know you finished 4th in it. And it was a good tournament. June, like I said, is tough. That same bait I threw around Russell up there, just messing around, practicing a couple of days when I first got my Old Town Autopilot 136. I just stood up and cruised, and Tom and them always mentioned, there's obviously big largemouth in there, but they're like spotted bass are everywhere too. And so, man, I threw that bait and drew fish from everywhere. I went out in the middle of nowhere on a map and threw on humps with certain baits and caught them there. Started fishing laydowns and caught them there. And that was in June. And, a lot of times, on Chick, we get, our home lakes, we get 3 or 4 bites in a day when it's that kind of heat. It was high 90s back then, but, hopefully you guys will have better this go around. I'd like first, it'd be great to have 50 in this one again too, but, I'll pull up the details for the tournament. We're just kind of keeping it casual here, but, while I pull that up, what do you got fishing next, Chris?
On the 16th, TVKA is on Chickamauga, 60 Bridge and above. That's like the northern part of Chickamauga. It should be good. We still got low water right now. Hopefully the water will come up some.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening here, I know a lot of you keep up with what we've done in the past, but TVKA is our Tennessee Valley Kayak Anglers Club that Lambert and some other people started. And then I took at the end of the first year, I took over TD during the classic, and we, me and Lambert grew it. And then, Sassy Dan stepped in, and we did that for a couple of years. And then now Jesse Clark, along with Walters here and Casey Smith and Starnes and Joe Kirk, they've helped, they've took it, literally off my hands. Cause I for the last year or so, probably the last 2 years of it, and they probably won't say it, but I didn't have time to run it like it needed and deserved. So I did kind of a crappy job of it, but seeing them step in and do it now, man, it's freaking awesome. Like, I've only got to fish one event so far. I think I might get 2 more in. I'm not going to be able to fish enough to do the championship stuff, because I've got, maybe hopefully the opportunity to go to China and do a few other things. But so TVKA, if you're ever around, that we fish, what is it? We fish Watts Bar, Nickajack, Gunnersville, Del Hollow at times. I think we're fishing the Collins River this year, which is super freaking cool. And so that's going to be a good one there. Sassy Dan won that one some years ago. But we, we suffer from that low water that comes, but circling back around to this one here on Lake Russell is, we're going to be headquartered out of Ain't It Good Cafe in Elberton. This event here for me as much as I love all the other ones, it seems to be the one that's, I don't know, it's like we get to have more casual hangout time, and it's where we got to meet and know, all you South Carolina guys and everything. But it's a traditional deal. It's going to be a 5 fish limit. We've got Georgia and South Carolina Bass Nation rules and stuff, but we are only going with one motor for this event. For me, it's a thing that I won't be able to move past. I just have to be comfortable with what I'm doing, or I can't do it. And so, the 5 fish limit, $75 entry fee, the whole 9 yards. If you're already paid in South Carolina, you don't have to pay to fish Georgia. And if you're already paid in Georgia, you don't have to fish extra to pay this event, to fish this event. And so, there's not much more to talk about from the event other than, I just want to talk to you guys about fishing.
Thing I noticed right away at Russell in practice, the first day we came down there in practice, I fished till like 10, 11 o'clock, and I thought there's something weird about this lake, and I couldn't place what it was, and I finally realized I had not heard another boat. I haven't heard a jet ski. I haven't heard a dog barking. I haven't heard a car. I haven't heard a lawnmower. Totally out of the question on the lakes we fish on the Tennessee River. And I got to noticing there's no docks, there's no houses around the lake. It's just like you're totally out in nature when you're out there fishing on that lake. And it was so peaceful. I mean, I've never fished a lake that peaceful in a kayak tournament.
Do you have much traffic that you've experienced, Bennett?
No, usually, I mean, you'll have some boat tournaments go out, on the weekends, but it's usually nothing like the surrounding lakes like Kiwi and Hartwell. But a couple of pontoons that'll come out there for a good time, but you don't get any of those big wake boats or anything. You don't get the big kind of the party crowd you see on these other lakes. It's really one of those lakes that's just meant for fishing. It's not a big party lake. It's not a big, go out and enjoy yourself lake. Most of the boats you see there are just there to fish. And I have to agree with Chris. It's a super peaceful lake to fish. It's one of those lakes that, like, I want to get away from it all. Then I'll go to Russell. Because you can really just be by yourself and just be one with the lake and the fish and just have a good time and not running those stressful encounters where you've got wake boats doing circles around you or something stupid. Yeah, it's a really peaceful lake to fish like that.
So, would you happen to have the time or chance to you have the Bennett, the South Carolina schedule pulled up for the rest of the year? If you can,
I can get it pulled up real shortly.
Yeah, if you want to do that, I'll go ahead. So Chris, like in Tennessee, we have a certain number of events. In Georgia, we've got 8 this year, and Georgia has a lot of cold water lakes like we do in Tennessee that fish really good. So we started a little earlier this year, and squeezed in 8 events because I changed the championship to October for Bassmaster. So man, this is it. This is number 7, and we've historically we've ended the year with a 3 rivers throwdown. So we've expanded it this year to 6 rivers. We'll have all that posted pretty soon. Trying to figure out how to have a meetup location like that, because when you have 6 rivers like that, you can be 3 hours from headquarters, basically. So trying to figure that out so that we can get everybody there, because again, that's the last tournament of the season. So we've got a Carl Black, Kennesaw AOY to award, So, I mean, that's June the 6th is our Rivers event. Sassy Dan's going to drive down and run that one because I'll be on Clear Lake, California. And then our championship is July 25th and 26th on Clarks Hill, and that was one that I had reached out to some people, and, good boat traffic on Clarks Hill. There just is. But at that time of year, we should be able to let you all fish and be able to get out of the way. So, I mean, that's all we've got there. And so that I'll go ahead and get into, the Carl Black AOY I just mentioned. Here's where we're at after this should be 6 events. I don't have that pulled up. Let me get that out of there. Yeah. That file didn't save right. I apologize, guys. But so we'll let Bennett go ahead and talk about South Carolina while I find this last Georgia one here.
Yeah, so South Carolina Bass, we've got this tournament on May 9th. And then after that, we've got one more on June 13th on Santee Cooper. And then after that, it's just our state championship on Kiwi, August 22nd and August 23rd, a 2-day championship. And it's a really fun time to fish Kiwi. There's a lot of fish shallow, a lot of fish deep, and a lot of big largemouth, a lot of big spots too. You'll see out of Kiwi that time of year as well. So that's going to be a really fun championship that you don't want to miss. And this tournament here in Russell is probably your best chance at trying to qualify for it as well. Especially if you haven't already fished, the 4 tournaments you need for AOY to qualify through that way. This is an easy way to qualify for that South Carolina State Championship on Kiwi, August 22nd, August 23rd.
Yeah. So, you had mentioned, so like how many events is it for you all to qualify for your championship?
For Angler of the Year, I believe it's 4 out of 5, but I think he takes the top 10 out of each event as well. So top 10 out of Russell and then top 10 out of Santee Cooper on June 13th.
Yeah, and that's what we'll do here on ours as well. We do top 10 with no roll downs, and then we go into the top percentage of Angler of the Year standings for Carl Black Chevrolet. So, which brings me to that right here. So, here's our rankings right now through 6 events. Your top 4 make it your scores for your AOY here. So, pretty loaded here. I mean, Christian Conrad has fished really good this season with Cody Kohler. He jumped in with the 2nd place finish right off the bat. AOY and Georgia State champion Tom Kazmierski is still lurking around there. John Patterson, who just seems to, I think I need to go back and calculate that. John may have won more Big Bass awards in Georgia Bass Nation than anybody. So I'll have to check on that. Deshaun's making a good push and hard run for it this year too. With Garen Butler's had a consistent season and got an easy 238 to Cole. That's pretty, I say easy, but then Richard Carbone. I mean, he's cashed some checks this year. He's in 4th place right now. Jeremy Meadows, reigning AOY for Carl Black Chevrolet, is in 3rd with 981, and then we got Eric Hawks. Eric Hawks has flirted with a lot in the last couple of years. So he's a hammer. He gets out and he fishes a lot of stuff. And then Chris Willis, I'd like to say he came out of nowhere, but he's fished with us the last few years. Did really good at the state championship on Lanier last year, the 2-day event out of Hammond's Fishing. But I mean, right now it's kind of his to lose. I mean, there's only 2 events left. I haven't communicated with him to see if he's going to be able to make this one. And then, but the thing is the Rivers event at the end of the year. I mean, in Georgia, there's always a war that goes on about, rivers and lakes. And it's comical to me, because I don't live down there, but I kind of think it's cool that, you got to go and you got to do good on a river, to win your AOY. I mean, it makes you versatile. I was talking to a gentleman today that travels, a lot of the country fishing the Bassmaster and everything else. And, he said, I started jumping into river events at local clubs just because, I needed to learn how to fish them because it's going to have to happen sometime. And so that's just going to happen this year again. So going to try to mix that up. I wanted the rivers earlier in the year, but then, after we had scheduled Oconee and Eufaula, not Oconee, Oconee and Eufaula, some pretty large boat tournaments got dumped on top of us. So we rescheduled and did some swapping around. And so it made it where the rivers had to stay at the end of the year. So we'll work on that going forward next year though. But that's our AOY here. And then there's your guys is in South Carolina. So, I mean, you probably know these guys, Bennett, if you want to go through the top 10-ish or whatever. And if you could see that, just give your input on it.
Yeah. Lowell's a fun one to see at the top because he's gonna be a hard one to catch, especially anywhere in South Carolina. Jason Davis has got an incredible record on Russell as well. It's one of his home lakes, one of his favorite lakes. And then, I mean, going down, you've got a lot of really good anglers as well. But anyone's kind of got a shot at it, but Lowell's got quite the lead, to start. So it'd be cool to see someone try and jump them. But I'm not anywhere on that list. I think I missed one or two events already, so I'm out for Angler of the Year. But definitely a really good lineup of anglers right there, especially there at the top.
Yeah, the thing about seeing Lowell in something is the fact that he's so meticulous. He typically doesn't screw up. I mean,
No, he doesn't. He doesn't make very many mistakes.
no, that was great. A few years ago, it was Jamie Koza was first, Lowell was second, and Tom Kazmierski was first, second, and third on Hartwell in the Bassmaster that we had there. And Koza tried to screw himself. I had to disqualify several of his catches for having everything covered. It was just blew my mind. I was like, he was just so nervous right out of the gate, but that was his first, big deal kind of kayak thing. So, that's what we got going on there. As I mentioned, these guys just told you what they've got going on for the rest of the year. But really the reason to have this kind of, podcast was to just hop on and let everybody know that, we're partnering together. Georgia and South Carolina, both clubs are strong. And, we just enjoy getting out together, and Ain't It Good is always been such a great host. And just wanted to get Chris's feedback a little bit on the history of the lake that he got to fish, for the Bassmaster event, and, just bring some insight on fishing in general. So, for you, Chris, I know you're a cerebral person, you think a lot, even though you're quiet. For you, if you're going to Russell or somewhere else and it's, I'm just going to fish because my calendar's open this weekend, I don't know a lot about it. What's the first thing you're going to look at, this time of year for you fishing somewhere?
I think there's probably going to be a topwater bite, and I'm not sure about the blueback herring spawn. I would say that's probably maybe something that might be going on there too. I know that lake's full of spotted bass. Like you can catch spotted bass just at will almost, but I'm not sure. I know there's spotted bass that'll have the size to get up there. We're in the 90s, and the largemouth are big too. So I would probably go after some largemouth myself. That's just what I do. But you can find some dirty water in that lake too. I think if you don't like clear water, I think it's standing timber and any kind of water you want to look for.
So what about you, Bennett? I mean, I know you're probably not going to give away a whole lot because you gotta go and compete this next weekend. But so not necessarily Russell, anybody of water. How do you start? What the first thing you look for?
No, I usually look for shallow fish early in the morning, see if I can just run a bunch of water and run into my kicker fish. And then it's usually going and throwing a worm or something, just trying to cull through as many spots, trying to find the size to get you up there at the top. And I think that's a key thing with Russell is it's guaranteed you're going to catch fish on Russell. There's just so many fish, so many spots in there. But being able to cull through enough of them to try and find that right size spot, or eventually cull through and run into a big largemouth, I think is really the key to that lake. Is just, I mean, if you catch 30, 40 fish a day, you're going to end up, culling up and getting those right ones in there. But just putting your head down and running the points, running the bank, covering a lot of water, just trying to get as many bites as possible to try and run into those big ones.
Yeah, so you got a kayak full of just hooks and plastics and just a big smorgasbord of whatever. So,
yep.
Yeah. So, Caleb had asked, with Hartwell being low, is Russell low? Is that kind of a Bennett and all had 6 worms tied on last Saturday? That's what Eric Hawks just said. So, yeah. Yeah.
No, surprisingly, so Hartwell's still really low right now. I think it's 4 foot below full pool, which is probably the first year in a long time it's been that low. But it's low still. But Russell is full pool. There's plenty of grass on Russell as well. All the grass is in the water. Russell's full pool. I mean, it's perfect right now.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, so we'll I'll get with Caleb and we'll do, traditional Friday evening if we can. We'll link up together and do a live stream, captain's briefing or angler briefing, and it's always on YouTube and it'll go on the Facebook and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that's what we've got coming up is Russell and then the Rivers. Chris is, going to hammer down here in Tennessee. Bennett's going to keep going on in South Carolina. Tomorrow, Guillermo and I, we're going to record a podcast with Vinny talking about the Santee Cooper event coming up at the end of this month for the Bassmaster Kayak Series. So all y'all get ready for that one. Hopefully that's going to turn out to be another, stud of an event. Since the time we first started fishing, KBF stuff, they've always went to Santee, and I always planned to do it. Me and Jody and Garrett Campbell that used to fish with Chris and I, we'd planned 2 years in a row to go, and something always got in the way. So I'm still not going to get to fish Santee Cooper because y'all are fishing on it, and I'm not going to get on your practice water, but we'll see. I don't know. So, but we appreciate you guys coming on, and hopefully you all can make some Bassmaster stuff with us in the future. But we appreciate y'all's time, and anybody you want to give a shout out to, we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for having me on, and good luck to Bennett on the 9th. Catch another 104. I think you'll be fine.
I'm not so sure that's going to happen again. That's one of those once-in-a-lifetime kind of deals on Russell. But I will say I'm hopping in a boat tournament this Saturday on Russell, trying to see if I can maybe do it again and take some more money. But, we'll see. But thank you, Steve-O, for having me on here. It's been a pleasure, and got to thank Newport and Dugout Bait and Tackle. Newport is always a huge key to my success in any tournament. Just my strategy in most all tournaments is to change ramps and to run as much water as I can. And Newport is a huge player when it comes to that.
All right. And Chris, you got to give a big shout out to the number 2 pencil. Wink, wink. I was looking through submissions, checking for duplicates and stuff, and still working on that part for you, my man. But that is amazing. My man's got a number 2 pencil jabbed in, making his kayak work right now. So we appreciate all y'all.
That's awesome.
That is so good. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll catch up just a little bit. Y'all take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Steve.
See y'all.
What matters to you? Commitment, dedication, precision, connection. Catching fish? Good. That matters to us too.